I was a bit afraid of that. There we go. I touched the trim switch as I was sitting back down, and I wasn't sure if it disconnected the autopilot or not, but it did, so there we go, we got it back in place. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Captain Abs back on the flight deck with you once again, and yeah, we are continuing our voyage south. We are on our way from, let's see here, from Prince George down to Puerto Vallarta. We are a good, at least halfway done our flight now, more than halfway done our flight. Let's see here what we're saying here. Estimating arrival into Puerto Vallarta here at 19:55 Zulu, so in basically just under an hour and a half, with a top of descent point at 19:36, so just over 30 minutes before that, so just about an hour from now we'll reach our top of descent point. So thought I'd come back on the flight deck, see if anything was going on, checking with you guys if you got anything to talk about. Feel free to ask. I did kind of check in at a very scenic moment here. We are down here, just about to fly over the Grand Canyon. Unfortunately, it doesn't look as dramatic in P3D as it does in real life. I don't think here. It doesn't quite. The P3D scenery, I don't think, does not quite do it justice. But we are, yeah, we're just flying west of Vegas here. This is the upper reaches of the Grand Canyon, I believe. I forget what dam that is, but I can look it up here probably on my Sim Toolkit Pro here. Because that's the Hoover Dam over there. I don't know what dam this is. But that is Lake Powell over there, according to my, oh sorry, I'm doing it on the other screen here, but yeah, here we are. This is Lake Powell over here off our left-hand side, so that's Lake Powell over there, and that is the upper parts of the Grand Canyon coming up here. So picked a very nice scenic part to kind of sit back down again. Unfortunately, we are still dealing with a no ATC situation this morning in the VATSIM network along our route of flight at least, and I don't think we even have anything, not even anybody within range. Not even any grounds or towers or anything within range. It's just a quiet morning on VATSIM. I was kind of hoping we'd get a few tingles of ATC here and there, but we got nothing. Nothing so far. I believe we're in Los Angeles airspace right now. If I turn around and look behind me, I'll just check really quickly, but I believe we're in Los Angeles airspace. We're just cruising the edge of Los Angeles airspace, just near the border with Denver, and then we're going to pass into Albuquerque's airspace soon, but neither of which, of course, are online. One thing I did want to do as well while I was in here, and I thought about it, was just check my FS actions here, auto cruise. Pause at top of descent is off, so it won't pause when we reach our top of descent into Puerto Vallarta, so that's all I wanted to just check was that. Otherwise, we're looking good. 1955, 7.2 estimated at Puerto Vallarta, which is still plenty. We are pretty much going full speed, Mach 8.1. There's not, they couldn't go much faster than this. Still got 19.3 in the tanks, 2 tons still in the center tank, so we're going to have to turn full center pumps off soon, but that's not going to be for another, let's see here, we're burning almost 3 per hour, so that's almost 6 per hour, so about 20 minutes. 20 minutes and that center tank will run dry, give or take. It really is just a giant ditch through the desert, isn't it? I know it's more than that, but it just from here, it's funny how it looks, how you just sort of catch it. It's such flat terrain, and then the Colorado River has carved such a deep canyon through what is otherwise very flat terrain. And I imagine, like, for the original people who came this way, probably barely even saw the canyon until they were almost on top of it, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's this giant canyon in front of them blocking their way. How are you going to even get across that? Like, probably would take you a day to get down, or half a day to a day to figure out how to get down, across the river, and back up the other side, depending on how fast the river's flowing. So, you know, the original pioneers who explored this way long before there was any other kind of mode of transportation, it was probably a very difficult obstacle to overcome. Not impossible, but just certainly certainly made for a bit of a detour. Although I'm sure that they thought it was well worth it for the beauty, the natural beauty of seeing this thing. One place I would love to visit. I've never actually been to see the real Grand Canyon, but I would love to go one day. Absolutely would. Just about to reach your top of descent to Atlanta. Well, we still have an hour. We still have an hour to go till we reach our top of descent to Puerto Vallarta. So I think we'll do about a half an hour, step away for another half an hour, and then come back when we're just about ready to get set up for our descent here. I want to just stay online, hopefully long enough to to flip off those fuel pumps. I came back at the right time to flip those fuel pumps off, and then once we get those fuel pumps off, then I think we'll step away for another short period of time before we actually come back for the whole arrival. So we're still crossing America. We still got another 20 minutes here until we 25 minutes until we maybe more than that, actually. Tucson, Arizona. So yeah, probably more like about 30 to 40 minutes before we reach Mexico, and then a good hour flight down through Mexico to Puerto Vallarta. But it is nice down there. I would like to think about, it's supposed to be clear skies, and I would just love to imagine right now flying down to Puerto Vallarta for real and just going in and enjoying some tropical time on the beach, because I have not had a resort vacation. I've had very few resort vacations in my life. I did one for a friend's wedding at Punta Cana, and it was a lot of fun. It's not generally my cup of tea. I'm more of a go out there and do things kind of person, but I do appreciate that idea of going and having a vacation and just sitting around and doing almost nothing, having no obligations, nothing to do. Like when I travel, I like to go out and explore and try and find things and see sights and get out there and do things. People often don't like to travel with me because I'm a doer, I'm a goer. I have a list of things I want to accomplish, and vacationing sometimes means something different for me than it does for other people. But I do appreciate the idea of the concept of the resort, and I have enjoyed it when I've gone, but it's not something I've done very much. But I would love to do it right now. I think we all would. I think everyone could frankly use a vacation at this point in their lives. After the year or so we've had of just going to a resort, sitting there, not having to worry about putting on your mask would be a nice thing. Just being able to go outside and not have to worry about putting on a mask, just to go and interact with other people. Seeing other people's faces would be nice too. Nowadays, you barely even look at people's faces. You avert your eyes. You stay 6 feet apart. You walk to the, you see someone coming on the sidewalk the other way, and you dodge onto the street so that you don't have to be within 6 feet of them. It's just such a sad world we live in, and I don't think it's going to go away very quickly. I think there's still going to be mask mandates for a while, depending on the vaccination rates. But it's going to be a bit sad. But I do look forward to a day where you can see other people's faces again. So yeah, see, that's my kind of vacation. Like if I was to go to Hawaii, I wouldn't necessarily want to stay at a big resort. I'd probably want to stay at like a smaller, less inclusive hotel, because I'd rather get up and go out and do things. I would absolutely want to go hiking, and go up on top of the mountains and see the views from there and do various other things. I wouldn't want to be stuck in the resort the whole time. So I wouldn't want to necessarily pay the extra money for a resort vacation if I'm not going to use the facilities that are at the resort. So I do like it, and I would probably go swimming a little bit, but I would want to go to the beach and go hiking and do all that. That would be me, absolutely. I'm not going to step away to wash my car today, but I will, like I said, I will step away for a few more minutes for the, probably to have a quick meal break in about 20 minutes after this center tank runs dry, and step away for about 20 more minutes before we come back for the descent. Then yes, I'll be here for the whole descent and the arrival into Puerto Vallarta, because I want to make sure that everything's being managed well. At least this is not like the CRJ, and the auto thrust should take us down in theory, but once you start down too, it's amazing how quickly things do happen. So you want to pretty much be here from before the top of the descent point. So yeah. And it's making me think again about, even just now, looking up and seeing what the weather is doing in Puerto Vallarta, to see if the winds have changed at all. No, if anything, they're more in our favor. 210 at 11, 2991 on the meter, so pretty much almost standard. We'll set that in the backup just for now, so it's ready to go. Yes, in the 737, yes, you must turn off the center pumps, when the tank runs dry. If you don't turn them off within a reasonable period of time, I forget what it is, I think it's in the manual, but it's like 2 to 5 minutes. If you let them run dry for more than 2 to 5 minutes, they won't reprime themselves again. So when they run dry, they're not fully dry, and there is still a little bit of residual fuel in there, because all you'll get is the low pressure light. So there's not enough fuel in the tank that the pumps are generating pressure, but there is still like some fuel still in the pump itself. If you let the pumps continue to run for 5 or 10 minutes, for more than 5 or 10 minutes after they stop being able to suck fuel into the tank, what will eventually happen is all the fuel in the pump will eventually get forced out into the intake lines, and the trouble is that then when you refill the tanks, the pumps will not be able to reprime themselves. They need to have a little bit of residual fuel in there to prime themselves. So the only way to prime them if you let them run dry for too long, is to actually call a mechanic over apparently, and they have to actually get in and do something within the tank to actually force it to reprime. So you don't want to let them run dry for very long. So yeah, you want to be around when the tanks run dry. Not sure how much PMDG has simulated that. I really am not, but knowing the levels that PMDG goes to, at the very least, if you let these things run dry for a long time, it's going to increase the chance of probably them failing at some point during your flights. So you want to make sure you are here to turn them off at the appropriate time. And this airplane does not have, PMDG 747 does have the ability under the auto cruise menu, it would have an auto tank operation. Because the 747 tank structure is awfully complicated, and because you're doing long haul flying, there's multiple different times where you have to change the pump configuration in the 47 as the various tanks run dry. So there is actually an option for auto tank configuration to actually turn the pumps on and off automatically if you're not there to do it when the tanks run dry. The 737's relatively simple fuel system of just having just 2 wing tanks and a center tank. All you have to do is just make sure these go off when the center tank's empty. So you don't have an auto system like you do in the 47. So I've actually got to be here for that. Heading over from Los Angeles to Atlanta, both Delta hubs, yeah. I imagine that's a pretty busy route. I was just reading about Delta in the news just now while I was just sitting around, and apparently, so the CEO last week or this week spoke out against a bill that was passed in Georgia, which is Delta's home state. That is going to make it harder for people to vote, especially underrepresented minorities in the state to vote. And so the Delta CEO spoke out about that. So then the state legislatures were like, yeah, if you're going to object to our legislation, then we're just going to cancel your fuel tax rebate. So they tried at the last minute at the end of the session to pass some legislation. It passed one house of the legislature, but then the other house did not pass it. The Senate did not pass it. So so it didn't actually pass, but the Senate the legislature got a little bit upset that Delta CEO felt the need to speak out about it. But and you know, the business. Should business really play a role in politics? Well, I mean, it's a dangerous road to go down if you do, but it can be a dangerous road to go down if you don't, because there's talk of boycotting various companies that are not speaking out about this, because you know, these companies will have a lot of sway in Georgia, and Delta will have a lot of sway in Georgia. They bring a lot of revenue in through the Atlanta airport. Unfortunately, the thing about the way the airline industry is structured, of course, is that you cannot easily shift that kind of money out of the state. You can talk about it, you can threaten it, but realistically, you can't just close down an airline hub like that. The hub, you know, Delta's central main hub, you can't just shut it down and move it to another state. It's not something you can just do overnight. It would take years and years of planning. So, you know, any threats perhaps are a little bit hollow, but at the same time, they can stand up and say, we don't think this is right. I'm certain it represents a lot of their employees at the airport. I come from a cold climate, so I'm okay with Georgia's weather. Yes, it is quite sticky, but I'm okay with the heat, anyways, the warmth. All right, now we're down to 1 ton in that center tank. And pretty much leaving the Grand Canyon behind us at this point. Vegas is off to our west somewhere there. If I go to the external shots, can I see behind us at all? I think that's the end of it there. Leaving it behind us now. Now we're heading out over, I believe we're over Arizona now, or New Mexico. Let's just check. I just love this. Such a great tool to have at your disposal all the time. Thinking about it. Takes a couple seconds for the live map to draw. I realize it's a very intensive. Yes, we're over Arizona. We're going to pretty much pass directly over Phoenix, and then over Tucson, and then south to the border. So we're about to leave America now in the next half an hour here. Destination today is Puerto Vallarta, the west coast of Mexico. It's a nice, warm, tropical destination. I'm sure there's lots of happy people in the back going on vacation. not terribly realistic. I don't think there's direct flights from Prince George to Puerto Vallarta anymore. Not until air travel resumes. It's funny because yesterday or this week, United announced that they were hiring back 300 new pilots that they had originally scheduled for training in spring of last year, and of course they terminated their training and let them all go, and now they're already rehiring those 300 people that has been scheduled, and they're going to train them this spring. Meanwhile, this week WestJet, of course, who we're flying for, announced that they're laying off 400 more pilots still. So Canada is still unfortunately flailing as far as trying to get caught up in vaccinating people, getting the vaccine in place, and getting the pandemic under control. Unfortunately, Canada is falling way behind in the last few months, and yeah, so the airlines are still laying people off. Yeah, I tried Volanta. I didn't like it very much. I didn't find it was very different from SimToolkit Pro, and it had less functionality. So I also found it not terribly intuitive. It seemed to work most of the time, but didn't want to work sometimes. Also, the other thing about Volanta that I didn't like was that I tried to import my flights from SimToolkit Pro, and only about half of them made it into my Volanta setup. So as far as I'm concerned, that I tried it out for a little while, and it looks pretty slick. It runs a little bit smoother than SimToolkit Pro, a little faster, a little bit less memory usage, but yeah, if I can't import my whole logbook, and my logbook has got quite long here now, 392 flights, covering I think like 1,500 hours or something now. It's totaling it up. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad system per se, and I like it. It's slick. It's very easy. It's very straightforward. A little bit less features than SimToolkit Pro, but like I said, the biggest thing for me was that I could not import my logbook, and I've already logged a whole bunch of flights here. It's thinking about it. Wow, it's really thinking about it here. There it is. 1,300 hours, 392 flights, covering 450,000 miles. And I love this feature here, just like being able to see. And I remember when it was blank when I first started this, and it was just like, oh, there's just like 1 or 2 flights back and forth. And then, and I've just built up such a network of flights ever since. You can see that I do prefer the airline flying, because a lot of this is long haul, a lot of this is transoceanic long haul, but I do like some of these shorter flights too, and I've done some various shorter flights here. You know, I've done the Toronto, and you can see Toronto for me has always been a hub. It really has. More than probably anywhere else, it's been a real hub. Although I have made quite a few visits to some other places. I've been to Orlando a lot, Miami a lot, Dallas a lot, Denver a lot, Vancouver a lot. So you can see the various hubs. And I kind of like this. It kind of really is kind of neat, because it kind of shows you where you spend a lot of time going in and out of. Toronto really is my central hub, though. But yeah, without that logbook, it's such a silly thing. It's just a set of virtual accomplishments. But without being able to import that into Volanta, Volanta's lost its usability to me. But yeah, if you didn't have a logbook to carry forward with, then it's a good system. It's simple, but it's effective. Ah, so you just recently switched to X-Plane 11. See, and I was kind of getting on the cusp of switching to X-Plane 11 or P3D version 5, because I'm actually still running P3D version 4, and I was sort of on the cusp of switching. I was sort of trying to convince myself that it was worth the money to switch, when suddenly Microsoft dropped their Flight Simulator bomb with a release date. That was what really did it for me. It wasn't the bomb, because I'd known for a year it was coming. It was the drop of the release date that sort of, okay, I don't need to spend any other money on anything else, because that's going to be where I'm going to go to the future, and I'm happy with that decision. I like it a lot. The airplanes are not perhaps as realistic as they could be, but the scenery is fantastic. Cannot beat that scenery. Yeah? I don't regret it at all. I put lots of time into that sim, and it's a beautiful VFR sim. It was only a matter of time, I think, before somebody went down that road and took all the satellite data that had been generated and stored on the internet and created a flight simulator out of it. The airplanes are not terribly great, although the smaller airplanes are not too bad, actually. The 150 and the 172 are pretty good. They have I feel like they're a little bit squirrely on the ground in terms of the rudder pedals being a little bit overly sensitive on the ground. But for the most part, I feel like the small aircraft are quite well done. But yeah, I feel like obviously the airliners in Flight Simulator are just garbage, really. They're almost unusable. They are really just toys. You can't even really play with. You can't even really do anything with the FMS or do anything like it. They're very much expensive toys. But I think it's a great platform, and that's what I look upon it as. I look upon Microsoft Flight Simulator as just a platform, a world that eventually high-quality add-ons are going to go into, high-quality airplanes are going to go into. And I've got to respect that you have the experience. It's one thing to be an X-Plane user and talk down Microsoft Flight Simulator if you've never used it. If you've used it, then I think you can definitely say it with some sense of authority. But I've seen tons of people who bash it without even having used it at all. And I've used X-Plane a little bit, and it's good. It's a good sim, but I don't know. The biggest thing for me was I was very invested in the P3D world when X-Plane 11 really started to come into its own, and it's good to have a couple of different sims out there. Really, it is, because it allows for marketplace competition. If there's only one sim that's dominant, then the developer can easily get lazy and just ride the coattails. So having two good sims really, at the end of the day, is great. Even if I'm not an X-Plane user, I still benefit from X-Plane existing because it has forced P3D and Microsoft Flight Simulator to really up their game, and all the developers for those to up their game to match it as well. But yeah, I've started to use Flight Simulator even more now that the RJ came out. The CRJ was great. It is great. Before that, it was pretty much just VFR flying for me. I'd used the A320, the fly-by-wire A320, and it's not bad, but it's just not finished. There's still lots of functionality I think to be added, so it's not bad. And it's funny that I don't feel inclined to fly that very much. I do, but I don't. But I think the other thing too is that I also don't have a wide stable of airports. The thing about P3D is I have a wide stable of major airports that I can visit that have good scenery, and I feel like the good airport scenery is lacking in Microsoft Flight Simulator. The in-betweens are fantastic, but then the airports are they're good, but they're not as good as some of the really detailed ones that I have in P3D. So that's why I'm kind of gonna buy the A321 when you land. Don't sleep on it at least one night. If you wake up tomorrow and you still can't live without it, then do it tomorrow. That's what I always tell my kids, and that's what I always try to tell myself too, is sleep on it. If you really wake up tomorrow and you really feel like you can't live without it tomorrow again, then okay. But I always, whenever I'm contemplating like a big kind of discretionary purchase, there we go. First pump in the center tank is run dry. But yeah, when you're thinking of like a big discretionary purchase, and some of these flight sims add-ons are not cheap. The airplanes, some of the bigger sceneries even, they're not cheap. So sleep on it. You've been sleeping on it for 5 nights, okay? Fair. But that's what I tend to do too. I get excited about something one day and then I'm going to wait till tomorrow and see if I'm just as excited tomorrow. Because yeah, at the end of the day right now, it also comes down to you got to watch the pennies a little bit. My employment unfortunately is not what it once was as a pilot. Demotions and job changes over the last 12 months have substantially cut my income, and it's unfortunate. It's frustrating. I know it's temporary, but temporary for how long, I don't know. So it's been very frustrating. So I've had to sort of watch my spending. I actually did very good for the last few. I did very good for like the last 6 months, because ever since Microsoft Flight Simulator came out, I didn't feel like I should be spending any money on the P3D platform at all. And I didn't want to spend any money on that platform either, because I was sort of seeing how the platform was evolving and what was going to be worthwhile. No, $80 is not a lot. You're right. To me, the $80 is it's all about how much time are you going to spend in that airplane. Are you going to get your money's worth in that sense? Are you going to spend 5 hours in it, or are you going to spend 50 or 80 hours? If you're going to spend 80 hours flying around over the next year even, you'll probably get your money's worth. That's the way I look at it, you know. And it's funny, like, you look at your Steam games. I don't have Steam open right now, but you look at your Steam games and look at which ones you got your money's worth out of and which ones you bought, and then you ended up playing for 10 hours. You're like, or 5 hours. It's like, it really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And there's some games on Steam that are just absolutely, it's a little sad and scary when they track how much time you've played a game. Because I have, there's only a few games in the Steam catalog, I think, that I've spent, in my Steam library, that I've spent money on where I could say I've definitely gotten my money's worth. But those few that I did get my money's worth out of, I really got my money's worth out of. Microsoft Flight Simulator being one of them. I think in the last 8 months, 8 months, I've logged like 500 hours of Microsoft Flight Simulator alone. So even with the deluxe package and the $100-something, I got my money's worth out of that. And there's a few other games like that. Yeah, there's a few other games like that, and then you look at the other games that you're like, oh, you played that one for 12 minutes. It's like, why did I even buy that? That wasn't worth my money. Or you played it for 3 hours or 5 hours or 10 hours even. Was it really worth the money you spent on it? Well, if it was only a $10 game, okay, 10 hours is probably worth it. But if it was a $60 game and you only spent, or a $40 game and you only spent 10 hours playing it, you probably didn't really get your money's worth out of it. So that's the way I try to look at these things as well. Yes, you can't spend an infinite amount of money, but how much time will you spend playing with that A320? And the airplanes, yes, they're more expensive, but you get more universal use out of them. Here comes Phoenix. There's Phoenix right down there. And there it is, loading the Phoenix airport. And that's how I think I can justify definitely spending more money on airplanes than airports. Because airports I'll probably visit a handful of times, unless it's like a major hub airport I will visit a lot. But an airplane, I will spend hours and hours in the airplane, so they're definitely worth it. Yeah, I kind of a little bit regret the most expensive pack because I haven't used the airplanes. I would definitely have bought the medium pack because the 172 and the 150 to me were essential airplanes to have in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Not so much with this one. Not so much with the jetliners. I didn't buy it for the jetliners. I didn't think they were going to be any good, so I'm not really disappointed by that. I bought it for the scenery and the smaller airplanes. So, anyways, I think I'm going to step away for... Oh, wait, how long do we have? We have an hour... Oh, we have 2 hours still to go. I thought we had an hour to go. It's 1800, not to 1900, so never mind. I will definitely spend money on airports, but I won't spend an infinite amount of money on airports either. I will spend money on the airports that I will visit a lot, that will make the situation realistic. The one that I'm really missing right now in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I can't wait to get it, will be Toronto Pearson, because it's, of course, basically home base to me. And to fly the default airport there, it's so just ugly. It's so terrible. I've had Fly Tampa scenery in FSX and P3D for 5 years now, 6 years now. I can't even fathom flying into that airport with default scenery anymore. It's so brutal. So, yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, I don't know. Airports, again, at airports it depends on how much time you're going to spend at a particular airport. And a lot of airports, if you're only going to go there once or twice, are probably not worth the money. But there's lots of free deals out there. So if you keep your eye open, you're going to find plenty of decent free deals out there. Or even very inexpensive versions. And then the hubs. I have to have a good realistic airport, though, because I feel like it's not right to have this beautifully detailed airplane and then go fly into this blocky, pixelated default airport. It just, to me, that shatters the illusion, you know. I mean, I make no bones about it, this is a simulation, but it's a good simulation. It's fairly realistic from here right now. And then flying to some default airport with just gray block terminals, it just blows all the illusion of realism right out of the way. And if you can find a good freeware one, I mean, there's decent freewares. There's lots of cheap-looking freewares. P3, and here's the thing too. I find that a lot of the paywares or the freewares in P3D, all it is just remaking the default textures into the correct shape, but it's often still the default textures that just don't look very good. And I'm not trying to belittle anyone who makes freeware scenery, because I still appreciate what you do, and obviously working with the tools you've got available. But I think it also comes just from the fact that I know what the airports look like in real life. And I can't reconcile the difference sometimes of what a realistic looking airport versus a default looking one. But yeah, anyways, you know, to each their own. You know, you do what you can to make the most out of your hobby and make it as enjoyable as possible. But especially as far as I'm concerned too, when I live stream too, I want it to be a somewhat good looking situation, so especially for live streaming, I don't want to live stream a default airport. Alright, so we still have 2 hours to go. I thought we had 1 hour to go. I was obviously, my math is totally out. We're not going to be there till 1956. It's top of Tarop 1937, so... Anyways, we are slowly on our way. We're pretty much right overhead Phoenix here. There is Phoenix Sky Harbor down there. That is Flightbeam's Phoenix Sky Harbor down there, which is also a nice scenery. But again, this is what I'm talking about too with the scenery Microsoft Flight Simulator. That airport stands out like a sore thumb against the background scenery in P3D. Against the Orbex textures, and nothing against Orbex or anything. I think everyone's doing the best they can with the engine that they have, but the airports in Microsoft Flight Simulator are just so well blended in that you don't even see them unless you really know what you're looking for. But here in P3D, there's an airport there. It sticks out like a sore thumb. There's another one right there. Sticks out like a sore thumb. They stick out like sore thumbs. They're so easy to spot. I enjoy VFR flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator because it's hard to spot the airports. You actually have to work. You have to look at the VFR chart. Look around, look for the landmarks, and then you can spot the airport. I try when I do VFR flying too to not use the G1000, not use the GPS to see where we are. I try to really do it just totally purely looking out the window, and it's possible to do that in Microsoft Flight Simulator in a way that's never been possible in this sim. You could sort of VFR navigate a bit, you can follow the roads, and the towns are more or less the right shape. But the airports just stick out like sore thumbs. The second you're within 50 miles of it, you can see your destination. You're like, oh, there it is, okay, fine. But with this way the airports are blended into Microsoft Flight Simulator, the satellite imagery, oh, it makes VFR flying a real challenge, a realistic challenge. So yeah, and that's the thing, like I love doing it. Like I love taking it out and doing circuits when guys are training in VATSIM on like tower positions. I love just going doing circuits for them. You know, I love doing VFR. I love doing FS economy flights too in all manner of small GA airplanes. GA airplanes are where Microsoft Flight Simulator is at right now. The CRJ is good. If you haven't seen my video, I've done 2 videos now actually. If you check out my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/CaptainNabs, same as the Twitch channel essentially. I have 2 live streams of the CRJ I've done, and have a look at it in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think it's going to be a very worthwhile purchase. I enjoyed it a lot. Do I think there'll be an X-Plane 12? I don't know. I would venture to say probably will be eventually, because X-Plane has become extremely stable and popular platform now. I don't know. I really don't know. Didn't X-Plane 11 just get ported over to the Vulcan system recently too? The Vulcan platform? So there's definitely a lot of future and lifetime left in X-Plane 11. I don't know if there will be a 12. Yeah, thank you. Please do. And have a look at the Airsoft, the CRJ videos and see if you like it. I think it's going to be a very worthwhile plane, and it makes Microsoft Flight Simulator very useful as a sim now for the airline level. I hope there's going to be some other good airliners out there soon. But yeah, I don't know if there's going to be an X-Plane 11. I honestly have no idea. I can see it happening, but I think somebody said it best. What's his name? The guy who basically wrote X-Plane. Basically, we're all just flying. He's just doing what he wants with the sim, and we're just all along for the ride. Someone said that, and I thought that was a very apt quote. He's created the sim he wanted, and he's let everyone else use it, and that's what X-Plane is really. Is the sim he always wanted to have. I think with the way X-Plane 11 has developed now, I don't think it'll be the last version, but I think it's going to be a very stable version for a long time now. It's built up a very strong following. It's a very stable platform, very usable. I think it's going to be a stable platform for a long time. It's going to be very much like FSX, where it was the platform for quite some time until it becomes quite dated. So I could be wrong. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. Maybe there'll be like a satellite image version of X-Plane 11 come out in the next year or two, you know, to compete with Microsoft Flight Simulator. I don't know. It's possible, but yeah, I think certainly for the near term, for the next several years, I think what you're going to see is iterations of X-Plane 11, just smaller updates that keep on improving the platform, because the trouble with moving on to like a whole nother version and really changing things is that you break the add-on market, and the add-on market is what has really sold X-Plane 11 now, I think. X-Plane 11 has sold its add-on market, and the add-on market has sold X-Plane 11. The two go hand in hand, and then to try and move on to the next version, then everyone's got to update all their products to support version 12. See, and I'll respectfully disagree. I think that P3D is also a fantastic platform for realistic simmers, with the level of capability that's allowed by airplanes in the P3D platform, and PMDG's airplanes are really top of mind when you talk about that kind of level of detail. But there are other ones out there too. The Dash 8 by Majestic and the Fly the Mad Dog from Leonardo. Those are two other examples of like very deep, well-developed airliners that really take as much advantage of the sim as they can. And yes, I think overall Microsoft Flight Simulator has been a good thing for all the platforms, because if nothing else, it's gotten the flight simulation genre out there in front of all sorts of different people. People who may not have been simmers otherwise. So I think, regardless, I think it's a good thing for everybody. It introduces more people to the genre, and if people pick up X-Plane 11 and say, hey, I like this better, so be it. I'm happy to see them out there and enjoying this, getting the most out of this, hopefully getting online on the networks, on VATSIM and the like, and participating in the community. I think competition is always a good thing, as long as it's not, the market's not too fragmented. But I think with certainly two major sims and one sort of sim that's sort of falling behind the P3D sim, I think the market has got some good stiff competition. Yeah, now you just got to get them on the VATSIM network. Well, and that's the thing too. And Microsoft did a great job of making it fun. It's a little bit too much focus on the fun, I think, right now. But I think that will change over time. I think as more and more realistic add-ons come out for it, I think it will get better and more realistic. I think right now Microsoft Flight Simulator is a bit toy-like sometimes, a bit Xbox-ish. The interface is too simplistic for real simmers, and I think that will evolve over time. I hope that will evolve over time. But it's good because, yeah, it lets people get out there and just have fun and see what aviation is about. Like here where I am sitting here, just watching the scenery fly by from 30,000 feet. It's tons of fun just to get down there too in the Cub and just go cruising up and down these valleys at 50 knots and try not to bash into the side of the canyons as you're flying along. The bush tours are tons of fun, like just to explore the world that you've never seen before, parts of the world you've never seen before. Yeah, it's probably hard to get people who are casually involved in VATSIM. They have to be at least somewhat what's the word, competent simmers before they can really get into VATSIM. But you never know. Not everyone will be, but I think there will always be quite a few people now who had no idea this world even existed, that will become simmers on VATSIM or the like. So not everyone will, absolutely not. Not everyone's going to have the time to dedicate, but more people. But I think some people will. Yeah, you got to be knowledgeable, you got to be competent, but you don't have to be perfect. That's for sure. You see people all the time who are learning. And I, for one, try to be as patient as I can. As long as it's not busy, I'm very patient with people who are trying to learn. As long as people are willing to accept some feedback as well. That's the only thing that bugs me, is when someone is not when someone's not doing something properly, but when they're unwilling to learn and grow. And that's the only time I get frustrated. Otherwise, I try to be as patient as I can with newcomers, because everyone was new once upon a time, and everyone has to learn, so. We're getting there. Yeah, I think you can kind of see the Pacific out there on the horizon, a little bit. Yeah, and I try to provide feedback in a helpful way whenever possible. I try to do it privately in private chats. I try not to do it in public. I try to normally provide feedback in private as much as possible, so that people are willing to accept the feedback and learn from it. You give people, especially negative feedback in public, and people tend to, it gets their guard up, and they tend to not listen. So it's you have to sort of walk a line there. You definitely have to walk a line in terms of providing feedback, but it's a great way to learn about aviation too, and there's tons and tons of knowledgeable people out there on that network. So I think in the long run, anyone who participates in that, as long as they do it with an open mind, I think that they get a lot out of it. Alright, I think I'm going to step away again. I'm going to take another little break so I'm ready for our descent into Puerto Vallarta. So I'm going to step away for probably about 45 minutes to an hour. I'm going to be back no later than 1915 Zulu. We'll say that. So no later than 1915 Zulu we'll be back in the flight deck. Might even be closer to 1900, so we have plenty of time to get set up for our descent before we actually start down. So thank you everybody who's watching. I appreciate it, as always. I'm going to take a break for about an hour, so check in with me again in about an hour for our descent and landing into Puerto Vallarta. It's a beautiful, beautiful approach, beautiful scenery down there. It's supposed to be clear skies like this pretty much the rest of the way, so it should be a really nice day for the landing in Puerto Vallarta. That's going to be at about 1950. Oops. Sorry about that, guys. Flight attendant wants me. Yeah, so we'll be back in the flight deck about 19:15, no later than that, to get set up in about an hour. So thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. You can keep the stream open or just come back in an hour, and we'll see you guys all real soon. Got Bullet, thank you for the conversation. I'm enjoying it, and hopefully we'll chat a little bit more in about an hour. welcome back to the flight deck for the last segment of our Pilot's Life flight for today. We are approaching the top of descent point for Puerto Vallarta here. Let me just bring my chat window back open there so I can see anything you guys are saying. Welcome back to the channel. Yeah, we are flying over Mexico. We're over the west coast of Mexico, as you can see there, the Pacific Ocean in the background, and we are in our WestJet 737 getting ready for that final stage of our journey, the descent into Puerto Vallarta here. Let's just have a quick look in the flight deck and have a little look-see around here. So we still got our top of descent point here about 160 miles away, so we still do have some time until we get to Puerto Vallarta up there, about just a little bit under 300 miles away, about 250 miles away. So we are definitely getting there pretty quickly now. And let's pull this up here. And we are looking at 1956 Zulu for landing time with a top of descent at 1937. In about 20 minutes, we're going to reach that top of descent point. So welcome back in the flight deck. Let's get this party started with getting ready for our descent into Puerto Vallarta. And just a quick check, see if we have any ATC online. Still no. It's going to be one of those negative ATC streams all day long, but sometimes it's just the way it is. So a quick look at the METAR, and let's see here. We've got 230 at 1150 miles, broken at 25,000. So it is a beautiful day out there. 27 degrees. Oh, nice, nice. Oh, I would like to go and get out of this airplane in Puerto Vallarta and do the walk around there. That's for sure. All right, so 2988. So let's just get the altimeter setting in there. Very good. That's all in there, and then we've got to start getting ready for our arrival. So first things first, let's actually do this, and let's go with the menu page so we can get our performance data here. Alright, so we are going to MMPR. Alright, we're going to land runway 22. We're going to land the full length, and before I get too into this, this should be the landing, first of all. Landing, so we were trying to do takeoff data. That's not right. MMPR. Alright, so runway 22. It's going to be a beautiful dry runway when we get down there. Show the keyboard. We'll say calm winds. Winds are 11 knots, so we can just assume a calm wind. As I said, 27 degrees and 29.88 on the meter. And reverse if we take a no credit. So if we were not to use reverse, let's make sure we can land on this runway properly. Air conditioning on, but anti-ice will not be required at 27 degrees. We'll do auto brake 2, and while I'm thinking about it, let's do auto brake 2 there. And there are no non-normal conditions for this landing. And then the only other thing I need right now is a landing weight. So if I do init ref down here, 26.9. So 126, oops, gotta click the field, I guess. 126,900. Calculate. Give it a second, and it says we're gonna need 7,000 feet, and I believe that's long enough. Yes, landing distance 10,000 feet. So 7,000 feet, easily plenty to land here without necessarily needing reversers. Reversers will just help us out. And what else we got here? We've got 144 knot VREF. So let's go ahead and make sure we've got this in here. And this thing seems to think it's 139. I'm going to go with 140. Oop. I'm going to go with 30/144. Put that in there. This was flap 30, right? Yep, flap 30. Yep, okay. So we got the VREF speed in there, and we're going to need some minimums for this approach. So now let's go ahead back to our tablet, go to the menu, terminal charts, and chart clip. Let's see if we got we didn't get the approach in here. We weren't really sure, but we are going to do the RNAV to runway 22. RNP is the RNAV. We'll say that WestJet is RNP equipped today. Loading. There we go. So first things first, minimums, LNAV minimum 720 feet. 720. Was it actually 720? Yes, it was 720 on the money. So we got 720 feet in there. We have the altimeter set. We don't need a localizer or an inbound course because it's an RNAV approach. So that's all good. Oh, you know what we never did? Huh, funny. We never did our step climb that I said we were going to do quite some time ago. So let's do it now. Oh, we gotta press the altitude intervention button here. If I can get it there, there we go. Now it's just gonna push the power up to maximum. And do a short little climb here. And for at least a little while, we'll be cruising at 370. I think I did look out and get some ATC the last time I came here. I came here like 1 or 2 seasons ago I came here. I think 2 seasons ago I came here when I was working for Air Transat. We did a flight down here and back. I think we did a flight from Vancouver down here and then back to Toronto. And that was kind of fun. But yeah, now we're working for WestJet, but I think we had some ATC that time. I feel like I remember some ATC. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just remembering things wrong. I can't remember now. It was quite a few months ago, anyways. Checked. There's the tone for 37. Just want to see it level off, and then we'll go ahead and get ready for this approach briefing. I think we got everything in the airplane already set up. So now it's just a matter of actually getting that approach briefing out of the way and then doing the descent and the landing. Easy peasy, right? Got about 100 miles till our top descent point, so we're going to chew that up pretty quickly here. A little bit of a wind behind us, not much, but... path, come on, any second now. Oh, it's going to just stay in VNAV path. It's not going to do an alt acquire because it's in VNAV mode, so there it is. It's in VNAV path, leveling at 370. And that appears to be pretty level. So, I think we're just about ready for this. Let's do this. Let's go over here, look at the tablet, and then let's also pull up this over here. So we can have legs page and we can get ready to do this. Alright, so speeds are in and the landing distances are checked. We're going to be doing the, let's see here, the RNP RNAV runway 22 into Puerto Vallarta, 12-2 effective on the 24th of March of 2019. It's an RNAV approach, so there's no frequency required. Our final approach course is going to be 220 degrees, which 219 is within a reasonable margin of error there. Minimum altitude at PE404 is 1700, there it is. And the LNAV MBA is 720, which we did set that. We can just double check that we did set that. LNAV 720 right there. I should be doing the, I should be doing briefing the star first. It's the Obrug 1 Bravo, there it is. Alright, so there we go, zoom in a little bit on this. Can I drag it around? Thank you. 10-2, 31st May 2019. It's an RNAV 1. Transition level is at flight level 195. Pretty close to 180. I'm just going to leave it at normal setting. Airport elevation is at 23 degrees. From Esvel, Kedex, Kedma, Noputup, or Obrug, continue to the waypoints, altitudes, and tracks shown to the corresponding IAF. Continue on the approach procedure or according to ATC instructions. So that's easy enough. So Obrug, flight level 230, is that a specific restriction? Because there's no lines above or below, which is interesting. The FMS has a program that's 230 or above, so I'm going to go with that. 13,000 or below at PR-CYXS, and then MUVBA, which is max 220 knots at or above 5,500. Because there's some mountainous terrain around here, and this approach actually hooks right around these mountains. There's actually some fairly high terrain off to the right side as we do the approach. We come right out on this valley path and then hook a right turn to get to the airport. So those are all in there. Now we can switch to the approach itself. There's the RNAV to runway 22. Yeah, so LNAV MDA 720, we check the airport elevation at 23, and we should have that set on the 0 as the landing altitude, which we do. Excellent. Missed approaches, climb on a runway track to PR557, straight ahead, and proceed on the missed approach to VIMSO and hold at 6,000. And so the waypoints, we've got MUVA at or above 5,500, max 220 knots, which we do have that. PR407, minimum altitude 4,000. PR405, minimum altitude 2,800. PR404, minimum altitude 1,700, max 200 knots. At PR404, we'll probably be going slower than that, because that's only about a 5-mile final. Runway 22, and then if we have to miss straight ahead PR557 at a max 200 knots, and then VIMSO at 6,000, hold at max 230 knots. There it is, hold at VIMSO. So that's all in there. It's a 3.1 degree glide slope, so glide path, so very slightly steeper than normal, but pretty close to normal. Shouldn't affect us too much. Rills, Pappy's on the left, and minimum visibility of 1 mile. It's a beautiful day out there. We don't even need to talk about the visibility, really. Do we have the airport chart? We do. Airport chart. Not too much on this one. It's a convenient left turn off the runway at the high speed, either Charlie or Bravo, and then Alpha back into the terminal. And that's about it. The notes don't really affect us, so that's it. Terrain, again. High terrain, especially east. To the west of the Pacific, but to the east of the approach is going to be some high terrain, and even off our right side as we're doing the approach, there will be some high terrain, so we need to stick to the approach path unless we've got it VMC, which we probably will anyways. But nevertheless, be aware that there is some higher terrain over here in this quadrant. There is some high terrain over here. There's some very high terrain to the south. So out here, any kind of a problem or emergency, you go out over the Pacific Ocean where it's nice and flat. Weather is looking like it's a VFR day, just hot, but otherwise it's a beautiful day. Operational. Any NOTAMs? Where's my flight plan? NOTAMs for MMPR. Alpha between Gulf and threshold of 22 closed. And from 0500 to 1200 daily 0422, which is the only runway, is closed. So it's closed every night. Fortunately, we're coming in during the day. And let's see here. Taxiway Alpha between Gulf and threshold of runway 22. So let's just see where that puts us here. Show me the airport chart again. Alpha between Gulf and threshold of 22. Okay, so Alpha between Gulf and threshold 22. So this section is closed for... doesn't say how long. Just says it's closed, so... yeah, we don't know how long. Too bad. We're not going to need it anyways because we're landing the other way, so it's not going to affect us at all. And that's basically it for my arrival briefing, other than the fact that we need 5... what do we say? I can forget now here. What do we say we needed for reserves? So let's just find our performance. Reserves 4.2. And we're showing overhead with 7.1. So we got about 3 tons extra. We can hold for about 30 minutes at that power setting. Definitely do a go around, come back and try it a second time without too much of an issue. And that's it. 1936, 52 miles to top of descent. So I started this briefing at just the right point because we are almost at that top of descent point. She's been a long slog, and the way back is also going to be a long one, unfortunately. Gives you lots of time to talk about things, though, but not too much to talk about anymore. Actually, one thing that I did just read about, and it just kind of came down today, not sim-related per se, but aviation-related, Air Transat and Air Canada have announced that they will no longer be seeking to merge, or seeking for Air Canada to purchase Air Transat. Air Canada last year decided... it was over a year ago. I think it was 18 months ago they announced they were going to purchase Air Transat, subject to regulatory approval. That was before COVID. And the Canadian government approved it a month or so ago. after they revised the term of the deal. However, they recently received word from the European Union that they would not be approving the merger. It was going to reduce the competition on the transatlantic market between Canada and Europe too much, so they were not going to approve the merger. So that is dead. It's gone, which is a bit of a shame because it was a little bit of a lifeline to Transat in these hard times. They were going to hopefully get a little bit of a lifeline, get some major corporate banking, because they've frankly had a bit of a tough time being both a vacation carrier and being in a time where vacations are basically non-existent. It's been very challenging for them, so this was a good thing for them, and the timing was looking really good. They were going to be purchased for a fairly low rate, and Air Canada was going to absorb a lot of their fleet and their pilots and a lot of their staff. However, that's not going to happen anymore. So now it becomes a little bit of a question of what's going to happen to Air Transat, because they had sort of been banking on this. They may have a bit of a challenge for going forward with the liquidity. They may not have enough liquidity to keep going. Right now they're in a full shutdown because there's just no vacation travel happening from Canada, which is what they do. So without that, they have no business right now. So they're in a full shutdown right now. Whether or not they're going to have enough to continue to be a going concern once travel starts to pick up again, it remains to be seen. I believe they were targeting a startup date in June. Hopefully they will be able to make a comeback, but with the restrictions in place, with the drop in travel that's out there, it's going to be a challenge for them to make a go of it now that their deal with Air Canada's fallen through. So the vacation space in Canada is a little bit crowded. It's not a big country. There's not a lot of room for a lot of airlines. I've thought this for some time now, and I thought that the vacation sector is a little bit overcrowded in Canada. There might be too many airlines in that sector, and it was okay during boom times. However, if things don't come back in a roaring way very quickly, one of the 4 major vacation airlines in Canada may cease to do vacations, and because 2 of the vacation airlines are also the mainline airlines of Air Canada and WestJet, it remains to be seen then which of the remaining airlines may or may not survive the fallout of all of this pandemic going forward. So it's a bit of a blow to Air Transat and all of its staff, and I hope I know a few people that work there, and I certainly wish them well, and I hope the company does make a comeback. At least they're fully shut down now, which is a good way to preserve cash when there's absolutely no business. But starting up an airline at any point is not easy, whether you've done it before, whether it's a restart or whether it's a full-on start. It's a capital-intensive business. There's lots of stuff that has to happen before the first flight ever happens, and lots of money, unfortunately, has to be spent before the first flight ever happens. So I hope that they can get back into the air in a meaningful way. What else do I forget? You know what I was going to do here? Just make sure that my FS2 crew is set up for this. So arrival procedure star, approach type, we're going to be doing an RNAV, RNP actually, flap 30. I don't think this really affects anything unless you actually do the play briefing. Approach type RNP, landing flap 30, bleeds on, final approach fixed altitude, 1700? I think it was 17, yes, 1700. 1700, I know the minimums were 720. And the missed approach altitude was 6,000 at BIMSO. Runway conditions, dry auto brake 2, SDX, yes, single engine taxi, no, gate, we're going to a gate. APU delayed start, concerns on, and we can do a play brief.
Are you ready for the approach brief? Okay. The arrival routing will be via the ATC assigned star, complying with all published speed and altitude restrictions. For a RNP approach, planning a flaps 30 landing, VREF is 144. Final approach fixed altitude is 1700 feet. Decision altitude is 720 feet. Missed approach altitude is 6000 feet. Taxi route in will be as assigned by ATC. We'll be arriving at a gate. We'll use the APU, but please delay the start until my command, as we have a long taxi in. Descent speeds and navigation radios are set. Airport NOTAMs have been reviewed. Any questions, comments, or concerns? No questions. Approach brief complete.
And that's why you have to set up a lot of these things are just for that audio portion of the brief. They don't actually affect the way FS2 crew, but some of them they do. Some of the altitudes you do have to put in there. Alright, we're really coming up to our top descent here, so let's get some speed, some altitude in here. Let's get 13,000. We're in VNAV mode. I believe that should cover us for all the terrain that's around the airport. Let's go back again to the star. The sector we're actually approaching from 8,600, so yeah. So I could even put 9,000 and that would definitely clear the terrain as long as we follow this vertical profile down to follow the star. We're good, we're golden. And here we go. I feel like I've been here before, a while ago. She's a bit hazy, but otherwise a nice day. And there we go. There's the vertical track. Chasing her down, and we are in descent into Puerto Vallarta. Now she's really cycling down pretty quick. I'm going to get my thrust levers down to be synced with them more or less, because we don't want to end up with... This is one thing you want to do, and the auto thrust system would do it for you, but you can't obviously if you don't have an auto thrust built into your actual throttles. Make sure you pull it to idle, because when it goes to idle, oftentimes it goes into holding mode, and then you can manually put in a thrust lever position, and if your thrust levers are still stuck up here at high power, it may still try to generate high power. And then your descent will be off, and you won't know why it can't descend, and why it's overspeeding, and all that other stuff. So, if in doubt, bring your thrust levers back to idle when you're in the descent. It would be interesting to do some comparisons, do some videos of side-by-side flying the same route and compare with the scenery out the window, P3D with out the window in Microsoft Flight Simulator. That would be an interesting comparison to do, because obviously it captures the correct shape and it's got some of the right land classes, but again, it's all very generic, and it doesn't, things don't quite blend nicely. Things just are sort of jagged and edgy, and I would be interested in seeing how it compares, looking out the window at the same spot and comparing one sim with the other. Alright, coming up to Obrug already. And eventually you're going to see that the coast takes a veer out to the west into the ocean, and that's where Puerto Vallarta is going to be. We're just going to kind of parallel the shoreline here for a period of time at Obrug, and then in about, let's see here, about 50 miles, 40 to 50 miles, the coast takes a big jut to the west. You're going to see that very soon here as we head down. Pressurization doing, the cabin's descending at 500 feet per minute basically. Differential's down to about 6.5. The cabin altitude's down to about 6,500 and falling. Very hazy afternoon out here, but it's hot. Not really surprising. It'd be very nice to go crawl out on the beach after this. Something I never spend much time doing during flights is actually showing the outside shots of the airplane. something as a pilot you don't even really think about is what the airplane looks like from the outside while you're flying it. But it is a thing of beauty to see the amount of detail that PMDG has put into this airplane. And I should spend more time enjoying it. I'm so obsessed with trying to create like that realistic in the flight deck experience that I forget about the joys of edge simming, which is watching your airplane from the outside and seeing what it can do from the outside. Bit of an odd aberration in the terrain there. We'll just ignore that. Alright, we're coming up to transition very soon here. Hey, got Bullet, you're back again. We are well into our descent now. Flight level 200, we're about to transition to the local altimeter setting. How's your flight to Atlanta going? Probably you should have, should be about an hour into it by now, so you'll probably be somewhere, kind of into the Albuquerque Center, I would think. Alright, so there goes 195, so let's go ahead and transition to 29er88. Oh, you know what we didn't do as well? Descent checklist.
Descent checklist. Pressurization. Landing altitude is 0 feet. Recall checked. Auto brake level 2. Landing data. Transition.
VRF 144. Minimums 720 feet set.
Checked. Approach briefing.
Complete.
Descent checklist complete.
Did I actually, I did the briefing. Did I actually tell him I was doing the briefing? I don't think I did. That's okay.
Cabin crew, prepare for landing.
So we're going to get here at 13,000 and then we're going to have to start decelerating. Any second now you're going to see that terrain come into view through the haze.
Checked.
Alright, and 2988 set.
Checked.
So we got the altimeter set. We're doing well. Don't even have any wind displaying. Winds are pretty much calm here. Oh, what a nice place. Oh, I didn't even see you were chatting there. Okay. How did I get that FO that reads the checklist to me? Ah, good question. That is FS2 Crew. So that is an add-on for your add-ons. What a world we live in with Flight Simulator. It's an add-on for your add-ons. But no, that's FS2 Crew reading the checklist to me. So FS2 Crew is voice activated, which is what I love about it. I think that's what makes FS2 Crew really very worthwhile, is that it's voice activated. So you just say things and it will react to you. You call for a checklist, it'll do the checklist. You ask him to do things for you, he'll do things for you. Set altitude 8,000.
Are you sure about that?
Set altitude 8,000. And there he goes. Sometimes the voice recognition is not perfect. It takes 1 or 2 attempts to do it, but...
Set. The cabin is secure.
Checked. Yeah, and it's the voice activation that really does it, that really makes this feature worthwhile. It's just so immersive that way. It really, you're not clicking buttons to pull up a checklist or do a checklist. You're talking to the invisible guy next to you. So if you really want to simulate airliner flying, FS2 Crew to me is almost essential. And this is the one problem I have. Like, I've been contemplating switching my careers in a pilot's life and switching to a company that flies the CRJ so I can take advantage of the new CRJ in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but I find that it's not an immersive airline experience yet because there's no FO, there's no voice activation. FS2 Crew doesn't exist yet for that airplane, and I say yet because I think it will. I think it's only a matter of time before it will. And yes, I am using Track IR, absolutely. A friend sent it to me. I wasn't going to spend money on it, and then he sent it to me, and it's been indispensable. I would not consider flying without it at this point. It just makes, again, it brings up a level of immersion where if I turn my head, then I turn my head in the flight. I don't need to press a button to turn my head. So I think the biggest thing that TrackIR and FS2 crew do well, they both do it well, is that they increase the level of immersion by increasing the types of inputs that you can have, rather than everything being a point and click interface or a keyboard button. I can look around the flight deck by moving my head. I can command the FO with my voice, and that kind of level of interactivity really increases the immersion factor. Huge. TrackIR is generally very smooth. It's not perfect. Occasionally it will have little glitches. Sometimes, especially in the morning when I'm drinking my cup of coffee, and the TrackIR catches a reflection off of my coffee cup instead of my headpiece, then it will jump suddenly. So it's not a perfect system, but in general it works very nicely. And like I said, it adds a big level to immersion. I can't imagine flying without it now. If it was to break tomorrow, even though it's I think about $220 or something like that, I would replace it probably without too much hesitation. All right, there's 10,000 feet. Approach checklist.
Checked. Altimeters.
2988 set. 2988 set. 2988 set. Set and checked.
Set. Approach checklist complete.
It's not perfect. FS2 Crew builds on the Windows voice activation. It doesn't always work perfectly. Sometimes it doesn't recognize words quite correctly. It kept thinking I was saying 6 instead of set. So sometimes, but there's a neat little feature of FS2 Crew where if you just say set and checked, it just finishes the current checklist item. It checks off the current checklist item and doesn't worry about it after that. So that's a really useful feature to have, just to be able to move through a checklist if you've forgotten the exact perfect phrase, or if the voice activation is having a problem detecting your perfect phrase for some reason. You just move right on. And that's such a simple feature, but it's huge. So here we are approaching Puerto Vallarta. Here's the ridge of terrain on the right I told you about. We're going to go ahead for about 20 miles here, 17 miles, and then hook a right turn onto final runway 22. And speaking of which,
1000 level.
Puerto Vallarta traffic, WestJet 2168, 20 miles northeast on the Obrug 1 Bravo arrival, transitioning RMP, runway 22, landing in 8 minutes. Alright, there's 8,000, so we're good down to 5,500, so let's go ahead and get 5,500 in there so it doesn't level off. We're just going to keep on going down, down, down here. Yeah, I think there is now an add-on, a plugin for X-Plane that adds a virtual FO, and what it actually does, it's kind of clever, is that it also creates a virtual person there next to you. It actually renders a person next to you. It's not just, audio and controlling the airplane, but it's actually a person, which I think is the next step for FS2 Crew. But that being said, I wouldn't necessarily want the performance penalty of seeing somebody sitting next to me. I don't look at them often enough for it to be worthwhile. It would be nice, but in order to render a decent human being, that's a lot of polygons. So I wouldn't necessarily want that. I don't think that would be worth it per se. Alright, now here comes a slight stutter as the scenery in Puerto Vallarta probably loaded there since we're 20 miles away from the airport. And while we're at it, actually, what we can also do is prepare for parking at a gate. Let's do gate 6, just to pick one at random. And we can use Aeromexico. And I wonder, do we have... Show menu, chart clip, does it have parking spots and coordinates? That's what I'm looking for. So, showing parking spots and coordinates. Where's gate 6? Because we're going to need to know when we get on the ground here. Gate 6 is on the inside of this here. Okay, so on the inside, on the northeast side. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and switch to the approach at this point, because we're getting into the approach phase itself here. It's cutting the speed back. We're a little bit high on the approach, so I'm going to get some speed brake out.
1000 level.
And I'm going to go ahead and set 3,000. I set approach mode. FMC glide path are both armed. It's found the glide path. It's going to pitch down a bit to find it now. And now that we're in speed mode, I can bring the speed back. So let's bring the speed back to 210. And in a moment it's going to try and turn final here. We're going to need a lot of speed brake here because it's a little bit above its targeted path. But I can see it's just coming to the glide path there now, so now it's going to start to pitch up, which is good because we're kind of getting towards some terrain there. We're going to get this turn in a second here, but it looks a little unnerving now, especially with a high rate of descent. I was worried we were going to set off the GPWS there, but now it's pitching up, doing its thing. And the other nice thing about FS2 crew, flaps 1.
Flaps 1.
He can do all that stuff for you. Alright,
Checked.
get the speed back to 190. Rudder pedals inside the cockpit are moving. The rudders are not in the external of the A321. Any fix? I would have no idea, honestly. I don't know. I don't know anything about X-Plane at all, really, so unfortunately I hate to say it. You'll have to, you're kind of on your own with that. You'll have to Google it and see if anybody else has encountered that problem as well. Flaps 5.
Flaps 5.
FMC message, drag required. Well, let's get the speed back now and then we won't need as much drag. Since we're in glide path mode as well, we should be setting the missed approach altitude here. Flaps 10.
Flaps 10.
And we want to sync the heading here.
Checked.
Alright, 220 is the heading, perfect. I'm glad it's working well for you. You spend that much money, you want to know it's going to work well. And I think it probably will. I've heard good things about it. All right. Get that speed. I always get messages at the wrong moment there. That's just my phone sending me a message. All right, so we are on the glide path. There's the runway coming into sight. Let's do this. Gear down.
Gear down.
Speed brakes armed. Flaps 20. Flaps 20. Oh,
Flaps 25.
yeah, sorry, flaps 25. Too many different types of airplanes you fly, you forget what the flap settings are in different airplanes. Because everyone's got to be different. Alright, we got just a nice straight run on the pipe, so 144 is our VRAF, so 149 is what we got set. Flaps 30.
Flaps 30.
Landing checklist.
Auto marker. Height checked. Missed approach altitude set. Landing checklist. Engine start switches.
Continuous.
Speed brake.
Armed. Armed. Speed brake armed.
Checked.
Set and checked.
Landing gear.
Down.
Flaps.
Flaps 30, green light.
Landing checklist complete.
Alright, nothing left to do but land. Auto thrust doesn't think it can slow us down to 149. That's okay. We are doing A-okay here. Beautiful scenery though. There's all the hotels and everything off there on the southern part of the beach there. Cleared.
Check.
Landing.
Stable. Check.
mute him now. Right on the glide path. Everything's looking good, nice and stable. And we'll go ahead and disengage the autopilot. And fly it from here. Disarm the auto thrust because I find it often does not work on the RNAV approaches for some reason. It doesn't retard.
100. 50. 30. 20. 10.
Oh, it was right there too. There it is.
Speed brake up. Reversers normal.
Alright, get some reverse in there, some brakes. We're gonna miss this one, we'll just take the next one, it's fine. Here's 70 knots, let's close the reversers.
Auto brake disarmed.
And let's just take over from the auto brake.
60 knots.
And here we go. And we're down. Puerto Vallarta traffic, WestJet 2168, clear of runway 22, taxiing to the terminal. Okay to clean up. Oh, still muted. Okay to clean up.
Check.
Stow the spoilers, and back we go to the terminal.
Master caution.
Almost
And
perfect
ice.
landing. Floated just probably like 3 feet above the runway and then floated that way for like 500 feet. What can you do? Alright, he's getting all that stuff. Let's get the lights off here. And there's the terminal right behind the control tower, so let's just get over there. And there we go. Welcome to Puerto Vallarta. I do like this tropical sim scenery. It's really kind of nice. It does an excellent job of kind of creating a barrier around the airport with all these trees and bushes. It does a kind of a neat effect there, so that when you're on the ground you just sort of see to the edge of the airport and that's about it. You see little bits beyond, but you don't not see anything else beyond that. But I think it's a fairly well done effect. I like it. I guess I should taxi on the center line if I want to get some external shots. Anywho. There's the terminal up there. We'll take the next entrance. What a beautiful day though. Can't wait to go to the beach. Start the APU, please.
Starting APU.
And for anyone who's wondering, this is the Tropical Sim, Pack Sim. Not Tropical Sim, Pack Sim, Island Sim, in Puerto Vallarta, and it's overall pretty good. They've covered a huge area around the airport, so you kind of have some details of like the hotel strips and everything around the airport. It's not just the airport itself. It's not the highest level of detail, but it does a great job of sort of capturing the atmosphere. I like it. I think it does a nice job overall. So gate 6 should be just over there on the left. Come up the middle of this aisle here. And I think I see our baggage trucks there, so our marshaller should be right there. Lights and doors.
Check. Cabin crew, disarm doors and cross-check.
Alright, this is gate number
3 minutes.
6.
Doors disarmed. APU on the bus.
Checked. Just look up and make sure he did in fact turn the lights off. Good. Did he retract the flaps this time too? Because a few times recently he hasn't retracted the flaps for me either. And then he complains that they're not done, but it's like, well, it's just your job. Why didn't you do it? And we picked the wrong gate, because we did pick the gate without a bridge, but that's okay. That's fine. Not a big deal. Alright, parking brakes on. APU is on the bus. Engines off. Anti-collision light off. Fasten belts off. And then he's got to do a whole bunch of stuff here. Let's see, request operate stairs, I guess, first, since we don't have a jet bridge here. And then we can request a boarding. And there we go. We're just waiting for him to finish his checklist as well. I don't have my hydraulics on or something. Yeah, that's possible. The if the rudder's not moving, it could be hydraulics. Absolutely. Fire up the airplane. Let's go to see if you can switch to ready for takeoff state and see if they work at that point. Alright, deboarding is requested. Shutdown checklist.
Shutdown checklist. Fuel pumps, off. Probe heat, off. Hydraulic panel, set. Flaps, up. Parking brake.
Set. Set.
Engine start levers.
Cut off.
Weather radar.
Off. 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 He really does not like this. Set and checked. Set and checked.
Off. Shutdown checklist complete.
I don't think he's going to start deboarding passengers unless I open the back door as well, because we determined that at Prince George as well. So let's open up that back door since we got stairs there. There we go. Back door's opening. And I think we still have to wait for the bus to arrive before the passengers actually start getting off. But nevertheless, there we go. We made it. The runway was stuck to one side. I wonder if that's some realism established with the lack of hydraulics, because a lot of times when an airliner's parked in the wind for a long time, the wind will push the rudder to one side if there's no hydraulic force centering it. So it's possible that that is realistic. A lot of airplanes, if you go to an airport on a windy day and look at the airplanes, all the tails are all been pushed by the wind. So that might be a realistic feature. I don't know. It could be an error, it could be a mistake, but it could also just be realistic, because if it's centered when you got to the runway and you've got the hydraulics on, then it could just be that, yeah, it's simulating the fact that the wind pushed it to one side. Landing recorded at 82 feet per minute. Nice. Nice. That one was a good one. And that's it. Another leg is done. Next is back to Vancouver from Puerto Vallarta. So we'll save that for another day, because we've spent enough time online today. But nevertheless, that was well done. Another one for the logbook. 323 experience points. We've got 135 hours in our Pilot's Life logbook now. So, well, thank you very much for that, God Bullet. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope anybody else watching also enjoyed it. I do enjoy throwing some information out there and just sharing the hobby that I think we all enjoy a lot. So thank you so much for watching as well. I assume you've already followed the channel, but if you haven't followed it, make sure you follow me on YouTube as well, because I'm probably going to be posting a link in one of these videos to my Discord, where I'm going to have the ability to post a schedule ahead of time. So you'll be able to look at my Discord and know my schedule ahead of time. It's not going to be particularly interactive at this point, but I'm not a huge fan of Discord, but it is kind of a good way to get a schedule out there that people can go check on. YouTube is not the best means for publishing sort of messages like that. So I stream on random times all over the place. You never know when I'm going to stream from one week to the next. It's sort of whenever I have time. So that's why I'm going to put a link to the Discord when this video goes up on my YouTube channel. I'll put a link to my Discord in there, and that's going to have usually at least a day or two in advance, if not a couple days in advance, a list of my next couple of streams. So stay tuned for that. But thank you guys so much for watching in the meantime. I'm going to go and enjoy the rest of my day, but I appreciate you guys spending some time with me, and I will see you guys all out there real soon. Stay healthy, stay safe, and keep having fun out there.